but I'm really proud of the version of myself that I am today. My late wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and after a year and a half of going on that journey, we thought we beat it, and then it came back more aggressive. And then I had the honor of walking alongside her as she transitioned and was given 12 to 18 months to live. And one of my mentors at the time saw the work that we were doing with young people, because we fell into work with young people during school programs and after school programs. And he convinced us to turn what we were doing into a nonprofit, because, there's money out there, there's capital, there's support to work with our young people. So I listened to him, turned it into a nonprofit. Before we knew it, we were in, 5 schools a year, 7 schools a year, then 20, 30 schools a year, working with tens of thousands of young people. That you are more than the worst things that you'll experience. And that you're more than the worst things that you've done.
Marcel, thank you for joining me on Girls Talk Books.
It is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, usually I talk to people who are across the sea or across the country, but you are actually in my own community of Kalamazoo, Michigan. So this is great to have a local person on my podcast.
It's an honor. I appreciate being here. I know you have a whole lot of prestigious folks. I really appreciate you blessing me.
Everybody is amazing. And that's why I wanted to start this show, because sometimes we don't get to talk to everyday people who are creating great books. And just because you're not on the New York Times bestseller list does not mean that your book is not amazing and worthy. So I want to be able to provide that platform to give people that stage to share their work. So thank you for coming. So we always try to get started with something about what you read as a child. What was reading like as a child for you? What did you read and gravitate to?
So when I was young, I think some of my favorites were Shel Silverstein, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Like I feel like I love Shel Silverstein's writing, storytelling. One of my favorite books of all time was The Giving Tree. I still have the book. It was like my childhood book. That version of The Giving Tree. And in high school, that's when my taste really started to change, and where I also found my love for poetry. I was a ruffian in high school. I was a very hard to deal with kid. I was the kid that got suspended all the time. That's when I experienced and received Tupac's The Rose That Grew Through the Concrete, which is written in his handwriting. And that was bestowed upon me from an English teacher. And it really made me fall in love with poetry and creative writing.
Wow. Why do you think that she felt that book was good for you or special for you?
She knew that I love music. Like she knew that I listened to hip hop, but I was also like not doing well in her class. And I think she tried to show me like, hey, some of the people that you look up to also do things other than the medium you know them to do. Right. And it was successful. She sent me to a creative writing camp at U of M, which is a place that I was never destined to go because I didn't get the grades or money, but they had a poetry slam team, and they also showed me that poetry could be whatever I wanted it to be. And that's where I really grew my love for poetry.
I think that's a good message, because there are teachers who are, mainly our teachers are with our kids more than we are. A lot of times they're with them like all day. And they're seeing different things. They're recognizing what makes them tick, what they don't like. And a really good teacher is able to really look at a child and say, okay, that child likes music. Let me find out how I can curve their attention here and use music to get their, attention, or to teach them.
There was actually, I just did a show in Grand Rapids at Schuler's Books. And the other artist that I was sharing the stage with for an author talk was also inspired to write by one of his teachers. So, teachers, one of the most underpaid service providers in our economy, man, they inspire so many people.
Right. I mean, even the same with me. When I was in 4th grade, I kept journals, but when my teacher mentioned something about the Pulitzer Prize, I'm like, well, what is that? And he's talked about, if you write well, you work for a newspaper, or you write a book, you can win the Pulitzer Prize. And I was like, I want to win that. Like, that's my thing. And I just had my mind set on just being a writer from that moment on, all because of that one little thing that was like, if you're really good at what you do in writing, you can win a prize at that.
I didn't know that was your source of inspiration. That's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it was ever since then, I'm like, that's been my goal. And I tell my students I work with, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep going for that until I die. Like, that is my goal. And, I'm sticking to it. So it's great to have those teachers who at least give you something to strive for, and they see something in you and they help you build upon it. So that's great that Tupac was able to inspire you through his writing, because he was a brilliant writer. And I think sometimes we see rappers and the company they keep or the image they're trying to portray as who they are. And sometimes that's just their entertainment face. And sometimes they don't know when to break that balance from entertainment, to their real life. And sometimes it merges too much together, and it could often cause their demise. But a lot of those rappers are brilliant. Brilliant. We've seen them go into acting. We've seen, rappers just really expand their talents beyond what, you just think, oh, they're just a rapper, but they're so talented.
They're definitely multifaceted. And I mean, Pac was that way. We saw him in, so many movies, from Belly to Above the Rim.
Mhm.
And I mean, we've seen so many people who started as rappers, Will Smith, go on to have phenomenal careers. And I mean, to your point, 100%, it's what they do for their job, as a business, as an entrepreneur. It's like, if somebody's a construction worker, are they a construction worker all the time? Do they not also get to be, a father, a cousin, a sister, a niece?
Exactly.
Are they just a construction worker?
They're multifaceted for sure. So tell me a little bit about you growing up. You said were a little ruffian at first, and then what kind of help, you got into poetry, and then you had an organization. Tell me a little bit more about how that worked, or do you not want to talk
So
about that?
no, I'm down to talk about anything.
Okay, okay.
Always the book.
Right.
So I'm actually somebody who's from Kalamazoo. A lot of people don't know that, but I have roots here in Kalamazoo. I went to Greenwood Elementary and Millwood Middle School, and then I moved to the east side to go to high school because my mom got married and they decided to move. And that's when, life continued to get a little bit challenging due to what was going on at home. And that's where I started to really lash out in school. And I got into trouble. But after I graduated high school, I actually moved back to Kalamazoo, and got one of my first real jobs at FedEx office, FedEx Kinko's,
All
a
right.
copy and print shop. Worked there for close to like 10 years before I, got inspired to move to Grand Rapids, and then spent close to, a decade there as well. But when I moved to Grand Rapids, that's where I really became enamored with philanthropy. Like, I saw that arts organizations were funded by nonprofit, and community work was funded by nonprofits.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, there's so much money out there to do these community impact projects. I need to learn how nonprofits work.
Mhm.
So I really started, pouring into and trying to get as much knowledge as I possibly could from as many people as I could. But then I really started to get intimidated because I was like, I don't even have a bank account.
Mm.
Like, who am I to lead an organization? And one of my mentors at the time saw the works that we were doing with young people, because we fell into work with young people during school programs and after school programs. And he convinced us to turn what we were doing into a nonprofit, because there's money out there, there's capital, there's support, to work with our young people. So I listened to him, turned it into a nonprofit. Before we knew it, we were in, 5 schools a year, 7 schools a year, then 20, 30 schools a year, working with tens of thousands of young people. And before we knew it, the organization was like a $2 million organization annually. In the last year of my tenure, raised over $6 million so that we could create a multicultural art center in my neighborhood.
Mm.
And I went from, starting this group with a bunch of other hungry creatives, to helping to lead it to where it became. And I don't necessarily know if I would do that all over again, because there were a whole lot of lessons learned along the way. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm really proud of being able to do something that younger me would have never thought was possible.
Great. And you're able to change lives and impact. You never know what will happen decades from now, where someone will say, because of that program, you know, this is what I learned, or this turned me to a different path. So we never
Yeah,
really know what our missions are, because we have all different types of seasons in our life. And that was just a season for you at that time.
it is hard because, like, everything that you just said is true. And even now to this day, I've just finally got back to, gigging and doing shows. And in
Mm,
almost every single one of my last four shows, former students came, really blessed me with how I impacted their life.
mm.
And it was a reminder of how important what I was doing was and how much bigger than me it was. But it was really hard stepping away, like, as a founder, especially when things don't end the way that you had in mind. There's a loss of identity that comes with stepping away from something that was your life.
Mm.
And, I would go get a smoothie from Tropical Smoothie and they'd be like, it's the diatribe man. And I'm like, oh, hey.
Right.
And stepping away from that, it really took a lot of soul searching, but I'm really proud to be back here, to be back home, to be planting roots, and to be diving back into this journey with art and storytelling.
So you said your students see you performing. So what are you doing? Are you doing rapping, poetry? What exactly?
I'm not a rapper. I'm not gifted to rap on stage. That is not my forte, but I'm very much a storyteller. So if you're like going to marcelfableprice.com, if you're going to my social media, and you're like, yo, I really want to catch a show. I want to see what he's doing. A lot of it is rooted in storytelling. And then I'll weave poetry and spoken word throughout the storytelling. But I really look for, what's speaking to me that day, what's speaking to me in this season. How can I share with people the lesson that I'm learning, how I overcame the crucible that I was set upon, and really just hopefully make it to where other people that might not even be able to see themselves in me can attach themselves to my story so that maybe they think that they can overcome some of the adversity that they face as well.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what is something that you really lift up and push doing your storytelling to really get people to connect with you and who you are and your struggles and what you've been through?
Yeah, so I'm just somebody who, is like anybody else, is a very flawed human being. I'm somebody now who is 6 years sober. I used to drink about all my problems. If life got hard, I drank about it.
Mm.
If I wanted to write, I drank to be able to get inspired, to have the courage enough to talk about the things that I went through in my childhood or that I was going through at the time.
Mm.
I'm somebody that, for a majority of my life, I was a little bit of a hoe. But I guess I say all that to say, now I'm able to articulate myself and talk about my feelings, to talk about the things that I'm struggling with and not make my problems other people's problems. Now I don't smoke. Now I don't drink. And to each their own when it comes to substances. It's just not for me. But I'm really proud of the version of myself that I am today. My late wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And after, a year and a half of going on that journey, we thought we beat it. And then it came back more aggressive. And then I had the honor of walking alongside her as she transitioned and was given 12 to 18 months to live. I'm somebody that knows what it feels like to have everything from building, your dream job, your dream organization, and then having it slip through your fingers. So I'm somebody who knows what it is to lose your dreams, to lose your hopes, and to actually like dust yourself off and convince yourself to keep going even when it feels like you've lost everything.
Right.
And I know a whole lot of people that when they lose the things that matter most, it's easy to fall into substances. It's easy to crumble. And hopefully I can be a, example to people that when you do go through grave adversity, that maybe there is another side. And it might not be soon. It might not be immediate. And it might be excruciating along the way, but there is another side. And if you're resilient and if you're diligent, if you commit to it, if you manifest it, you can get it.
Wow, I love it. I love it. And sorry about sorry about your wife, and congratulations on your sobriety. So, through that, the American Monarch, the new American Monarch I see has evolved. Tell us a little bit about the new American Monarch and what that's about.
Yeah, so this collection of poems is not, your everyday collection of work. If you go through these pages, you'll see doodles on some of the pages. You'll see QR codes in the corners. You'll see that the pages are made to look distressed. And the reason why is because if you scan the QR code, it brings you to an audio version of that work. So if you're somebody who likes to read, this book is for you. If you're somebody who likes to be read to, this book is for you. there's a sense of musicality that comes with the piece. Like the pieces are made to be engineered so that they're heard in the way that they were designed to be heard. An incredible local producer, one of the big bands for many years here in Kalamazoo, The Last Gas, Jay Jackson, he was the one that engineered all the musicality to the pieces and scored it, mixed it, mastered it. There was a lot of local artists that contributed to the cover art and the fonts and the illustrations on the inside. But there's also a bunch of doodles, scribbles by me, because it's made to feel like every book is the author's copy. Like every book is a rough draft, because we're all just that, rough drafts.
Wow. I love how you're saying that, because there are a lot of authors I know, we work through their manuscripts and they do have the doodles and the notes on it. And, you know, some of those things are gems, they're golden. And you're like, I want to just keep this, you know, manuscript draft to kind of keep my, you know, momentum of what was going on during the creation process of it. So I like how you include that in there. That's very unique. And, you know, talking about evolution and becoming who you are, you know, with the caterpillar, you know, becoming the monarch. Tell us a little bit about how you decide to use that, you know, parallel the metaphor of your life.
Really, the whole title, you know, New American Monarch, the idea was that, you know, the title itself feels so royal. But really, I wanted this to come out of a press that had Michigan roots. So much of these stories, of course, exists from me being a lifelong Michigander. You know, our state butterfly is a monarch butterfly. But also, if you examine the journey of a butterfly, it spends about a third of its life is a caterpillar. So about a third of its life is crawling across the ground, inching, you know, slowly getting everywhere, eating until it's full, and then going to the chrysalis stage where it quite literally eats itself in the darkness. You know, it devours itself into nothing. So for another third of its life, it's spent evolving, growing, which if you think about it, how excruciating might it be to explode out of yourself? You know, it's a painful process, but also it's a beautiful process. And then, you know, the final third of its life is spent as a butterfly, you know, soaring, flying, going places maybe you never thought that you could, a whole lot faster and a whole lot more elegant maybe than it was spent crawling across the ground or maybe devouring oneself in darkness. So I really kind of like look at myself and my road to growth is that. And there's some times where, you know, I maybe thought that I evolved, but maybe I was still dreaming in the darkness. And, you know, there's times where, you know, I thought maybe I was still crawling along, but again, I was a lot closer to coming out of the other side of the chrysalis than, you know, I might have thought at the time. And that's really kind of the way that I break down the book as well, is into 3 different chapters, you know, pupa, chrysalis, transformation. But honestly, the chapters after transformation, like, again, I was still dreaming in the darkness. I wasn't nearly flying. But I think that's for, you know, another book.
And that's pretty deep, because you look at your life and you're looking at it as in the transition of the cycle of a butterfly. And you're right. You may think, oh, yeah, I'm in the third part or I'm in the second part. But until it's all over, you have no clue where you are on that, you know, timeline or that spectrum. You might think, oh, I'm in the butterfly stage, but it's really still, you could still be in the caterpillar stage and you just don't know it, you know, until that amazing thing happens. And you're like, yeah, this is the butterfly stage. So, you know, with what you went through with your wife, what you went through with the organization, I mean, that was like, you know, painful. And did you see it as a transformation, or do you see that you were still in that caterpillar stage and you have not yet made it through to the other side? What do you think?
I like to think that I am on the other side now. I think that right after my wife transitioned, right after I separated from the organization, I think that I thought that I was on the other side of it. But to anybody that's ever gone through the process of grieving, whether it's a loved one, a grandparent, or a friend, you know that the process of grief is not linear. And a lot of times, especially if you're somebody that has been given the task of being a caretaker, it's not until after the process of all of the end of life work that you even begin to grieve. So I don't think that I was through it until maybe even recently. I think that I finally realized that I was through it because so many people started coming up to me and they're like, man, you got like a lightness to you. Like your energy's different. Like that's not something that you look in the mirror and notice. It's like growing as a child. Like you can look back in the doorway and see the notches, but like you don't notice the growing, mid growth. But now, so many people were saying, you feel light, you feel clear. And I think that reminds me like how rough I was and for how long.
Wow, that's powerful. It's powerful because if you think about it, you're looking at your life, you're reflecting it, but other people are seeing the change in you, the metamorphosis. And you talk about, on your website, self-identity, self-esteem, knowing yourself. This is basically what you're going through in your story and, what you're telling people. So, give us a little nugget on, that young person that you were ruffian before you found Tupac's, poetry book. What would you tell that young person today based on what you've been through in life, what how you've grown?
So when I was doing my show at Schuler's last week, one of my students in the crowd asked that question. And my response originally was that you are more than the worst things that you'll experience. And that you're more than the worst things that you've done. Because, those are the things that you'll hold on to and punish yourself for, or that the world will try to punish you for, but that like you are so much more than that. And my student chimed in and was just like, reminded me that the way that she put it, it was, and in so many people's minds, you've been more than that. I have a lot of friends, that like me have a slew of misdemeanors, or I know friends that have felonies, in the world locks people away, economically forever, when you go through, the ringer, and it never lets people grow and evolve past the things that they've done. And I think that like, I really just want to show people that like redemption is real. It's possible if you want it, if you're willing to commit to it. That redemption isn't just something that can be tied or has to be tied to biblical terms, although it can be regardless of what you believe, because, belief is beautiful. But I just want people to hopefully find the things that they have and the ugly that they have in common with other people. Because nowadays it's so much easier to find the things that we don't have in common with people, and everything is divisive. But there's so many experiences that we have in common with the people who don't even look like us. And I think like that's where the synergy, that's where the beauty lives.
That's pretty deep because you think about it, even with the job loss going on today, people are thinking, oh, it's DEI job loss. It's like, oh no, it's a loss for a lot of people who don't even look alike, and they're all going through these same type of issues. And now we do have that commonality, like, okay, there is something that bridges us together. It may not be, like you say, something good, but it's something that we all have in common. And that's what brings us to our humanness, making you like, we are all still the same, no matter what you think economics does, no matter what you think, your position does. At the end of the day, we can all go through a situation and be in the same pot, and wonder how we got there. So that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. So what is anything else coming from New American Monarch? Anything coming more out of it? You're doing more tours, you're doing, shows?
I don't know if I'm somebody who would call it touring, just because like I've toured before. Like I've gone on like 2 large scale tours in my life, like one for 3 months, 30 shows across the country, one for 2 months, like 30 shows across the country. And in this point in my life, I don't know if I see myself ever touring again. Because now, I have a fiance. Now, I have a job, a career I love. I have new businesses that I'm getting ready to start up. And you can't tour when you're doing all those things. Touring is full time. But I feel a sense of joy just being able to read, being able to do art in the way that I want to do art. Like I used to be a gigging artist who literally lived and paid my bills off performing. And you get into a cycle when you're a full-time artist of where it's almost like the survival wheel, unless you get to the point of where you're making enough to save and invest off of performing. which a lot of people don't get there off performing. A lot of people don't even get to the point of where you're paying your bills off performing. But now I feel like I can do art in the way that I want. I can take the shows that I want. I can do the sets that I want. I feel like I don't have to, oversaturate yourself the way a lot of local artists do, to where, you're doing 10 shows a month. So then everybody's seen your set. It's like now I can do it in a way that feels, I don't know, different, that honors, the art and the time that was put into making the final product. But when it comes to, the what's next, I've been writing. I have a lot of new work. I don't know what it will become or what it will be. A lot of long form writing. So maybe I'll dive into like a book of nonfiction. I have no idea.
Well, that's good. We'll be looking out to see what's going on with you. And so as we wrap up, like I like to do with all of my guests, we have something we call Once Upon a Time. And Once Upon a Time allows you to kind of reflect back on your life, kind of like what we've been doing, but just in a more succinct manner. So did you get a chance to do your homework and look over?
I love that question. Did you get a chance to do your homework? I did. I'm somebody who always does my homework.
Right.
So I appreciate that. Also, this was fun. I've done quite a few podcasts and interviews, and I just want to say first and foremost, like, I commend you. This was incredible. And the prompt was also incredible. So
thank you.
Kudos to you.
I appreciate it. This is a fun thing. Like I've always loved to talk to authors, and this is just a way for me to do it and share it with everybody. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, let's see what you got.
I kind of made it into our prose, if you will. Once upon a time, there was a little black boy who wanted to tell the truth beautifully. Not the kind of truth they teach you to whisper in classrooms, but the kind that made people sit up, lean in, and feel something. Every day he questioned everything. Why some people got love and others got lectures. Why grief made the room colder even when the heat was on. Why poems could save lives but weren't in the curriculum enough. One day he scribbled a few lines into a notebook that weren't meant for any, but they spilled like confession, like gospel, like the start of something holy. Someone called it a poem. He didn't correct him. Because of that, he started speaking his story out loud. At open mics, in schools, and spaces where nobody knew they needed poetry until he walked in and broke something open. Because of that, he built a stage for others. A nonprofit, a movement, a mirror, so the next kid with a storm in their chest had somewhere to land without causing destruction. Until finally, he learned how to love again, how to grieve in public, how to build in private, how to be a whole damn ecosystem. Poet, fiance, leader, death doula, light keeper, or bringer. And he lived. Not perfectly, not fully, writing the kind of stories that make even the silence applaud.
Just drop that mic on that one. Oh my gosh, that might be our top 10. Once upon a time, you might have brought it. You might have brought the top 10 #1 spot. Love it. That was amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for blessing us with that. And so anything else you want to add? Let people know more about where they can get in touch with you, what you're up to next.
No. If anybody wants to learn what I'm doing, marcelfableprice.com, Marcel Fable Price on any social media. Please look me up, Marcel Fable Price on everything. But one of the things that I always bleed, support local art. Like go to your local bookstores, ask them who the local artists are who have their work there. Go to an open mic, go to a show, support a creative nonprofit, support local art. Like, especially now, while there is, a battle towards funding so many of these things. Like, one thing that we can all do is find just some way to support somebody who lives and breathes creativity, that adds the seasoning to this jambalaya that is swirling around us. So support local art. That's my call to action.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to get out there and support local art, and we'll check out your website and your new book, The New American Monarch. It's available on Amazon and anywhere you buy your books.
100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Marcel, for joining us. It's been a blessing, and much success to you. Take care.
Thanks.